I just think about what can be done to repair all those years of not even being treated as a full person. Sure, it might be on the paper, on the book, on the laws that we're to be treated equally and fairly, but really, in most arenas, that is not what is happening. My sons used to go to this barbershop. It's a very popular barbershop. And I was nervous bringing my sons, even though I was an adult, because I was not allowed to walk over here growing up. It was challenging. You know, they had to go answer all these questions and show all this proof, and questions like, are you sure you want to move there? And actually, I believe they were the first ones to live in the home where I grew up. And my mom said at that time there were Caucasians on that block, and she said as they were moving in, she see them all like looking out the window. And then actually soon after, as the blacks moved in, the whites moved out.
New tonight at 10, an historic vote by the Evanston City Council tonight. It has approved the first part of a plan to pay reparations to its black residents. It's the nation's first approved reparations program.
In March of 2021, the City Council approved what many are calling the world's first municipal reparations plan. Reparations, though controversial, have a simple purpose: to repair damages or injury to a population. Now, when most people hear reparations, they think of another word, and that's slavery. But we'll get to that a little bit later, because Evanston's story is different. Its reparations plan isn't focused on trying to remedy the effects of slavery, but the effects of redlining that happened right here decades ago. And it's doing it with a restorative housing program.
I was elected to serve the 5th Ward of Evanston specifically. That's the neighborhood in which I grew up. So that's the community in which I have lived experience personally, professionally, and now socially, and responding to the harms in the community. We had to have a specific injury that was documented, undeniable. We had to have impact that was measurable, and we were able to do that by finding our housing and zoning laws here in Evanston. To qualify, you need to have been a resident and been black here in Evanston between 1919 and 1969. That time period is very important. It is a period in history where we had anti-black housing law, zoning practices that restricted the black community to live here only. And that community was later stripped of wealth and opportunity, stripped of important community amenities, a school, access to health care, access to healthy food.
The initial program will provide a maximum of 16 black individuals or families with $25,000. They could each use that money toward home renovations, closing cost assistance, or a down payment on a new home.
We understand that the need is incredible, but we're dealing with limited fund. We have cannabis sales tax revenue that's coming in incrementally, so we're delivering our program incrementally.
Not everyone in the community, however, is completely sold on the program. One alderman, Cicely Fleming, says she wants people to have more autonomy with the money they receive.
16 people having access to $25,000 that goes to a bank or a contractor on their behalf is not reparations. It is a housing program. It is a fine housing program, but let's just call it what it is, and let's not celebrate a victory we haven't achieved.
And this group agrees. They want reparations in the form of cash. You may even recognize these folks. Public policy professor William Darity Jr. and A. Kirsten Mullen even joined in on the conversation, calling this program fake reparations. Despite their hesitation, the program is moving forward. Let's take this back just a bit. If you're still wondering why this is such a big deal, it's because people have been fighting for reparations in this country for centuries. The first documented U.S. lawsuit over reparations for slavery happened in 1915 in a case called Johnson v. McAdoo. It was a class action suit spearheaded by former slave and activist Callie House. The suit claimed that more than $68 million in cotton taxes was owed to the enslaved people and their ancestors who actually produced the cotton. That claim was denied by the U.S. Court of Appeals in D.C. and the U.S. Supreme Court, but the idea of reparations didn't die with it. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court awarded the Sioux Nation a $100 million judgment for land the government took from them in 1877. And just a few years later, the U.S. government apologized to Japanese Americans for internment during World War II. It paid living survivors about $20,000 each. So if there's a precedence for reparations in the U.S., why haven't Black people gotten any? The answer to that question depends on who you ask.
We just really can't underestimate. People are not going to say, I'm racist, right? And I think that has to do with incomplete understandings of how racism works. That is not just about an individual conscious act that is enacted between two people, but there are larger systems.
Dr. Robert Patterson is an African American Studies professor at Georgetown University. He's currently working on a book titled Black Equity, Black Equality, Reparation, and Black Communities.
Equity doesn't give the same type of angst that reparations, right? Those words don't have the same political currency. They don't seem to have the same political backlash. And so I think that what we may end up seeing is the shift towards equity in that language, even as there continue to be fights for reparations.
Dr. Gerald Horn has a different theory. He's a Moores professor in the University of Houston's History Department.
Well, obviously, if you look at the polling data, there's a lot of opposition to reparations directed to Black Americans. That's part and parcel of what you might characterize as a kind of what used to be called Negrophobia. That is to say, fear and hatred of Black people in the United States of America. Reparations is a live issue. It's not necessarily unique or peculiar to the Black American condition, although I think it's fair to say that if reparations on the level that some are suggesting is to take flight, it'll take much more international support than reparations has received thus far.
Reparations is a loaded topic for a variety of reasons. People don't agree about who should be getting them, how they should be distributed, or if they're even needed. It's important to remember that the history of our country is complicated and nuanced, so it kind of makes sense for a topic like reparations to be two. That's why it'll take more than one conversation, more than one kind of reparations plan, or more than a few NBCLX stories for that matter, to fully grasp this concept. So we'll continue to learn and break this all down together.